December 1st, 1948, Somerton Beach, Adelaide, Australia. Early morning. A jeweler named John Bain Lyons is out for a walk with his wife along the beach. The sun is just coming up. It's a calm, quiet morning. Then they see a man sitting against the seawall. He's dressed in a full suit, a tie, polished shoes. He's leaning back, legs stretched out in front of him, ankles crossed, like he just sat down to watch the sunrise. There's a half-smoked cigarette resting on his collar, like it fell out of his mouth, and he didn't even notice. Lyons figures the man is probably just drunk, maybe sleeping it off. He doesn't think much of it and keeps walking. A few hours later, someone else finds the same man, still sitting in the exact same position. He's dead. No wallet, no ID, no wounds. No signs of a struggle. Just a well-dressed man, sitting peacefully against a seawall who somehow died sometime in the night with no explanation at all. And here's where it gets strange. Every single label had been cut out of his clothes. Not torn off by accident, cut out carefully, on purpose. Someone, maybe even the man himself, did not want anyone to know who he was. Police checked his fingerprints against records all over the world. Nothing came back. They sent his photo to England, the United States, and other countries. Nobody recognized him. The FBI checked their files personally. No match. For over 70 years, nobody knew who this man was. And buried in his pocket was a scrap of paper that would turn this from a strange death into one of the most famous unsolved mysteries in the world. This is the story of the Tamam Shud case. And honestly, even after all the research I did for this video, parts of it still don't add up. Let's slow down and go through what investigators actually found, because every detail in this case matters. The man looked to be in his 40s. He was in good physical shape, strong-looking legs like someone who walked a lot or did physical work. He had no signs of injury, no bruises from a fight, no marks from a struggle. When doctors did the autopsy, they found something odd. His spleen was unusually enlarged. His liver showed signs that looked like poisoning. But when they tested for common poisons, they found nothing. No trace of anything that should have killed him. The doctor who did the autopsy said the death was almost certainly not natural, but he couldn't say what actually caused it. That's how good whatever was used must have been, undetectable by 1948 medical science. In the man's pockets, they found ordinary things: a bus ticket, an unused train ticket, a pack of chewing gum, matches, a comb, a pack of cigarettes, but interestingly, more expensive cigarettes than the brand on the pack, like someone had swapped them in. Nothing told them who he was. Then, weeks later, someone re-examined his clothes more carefully and found something everyone had missed: a small pocket sewn into the waistband of his trousers, so well hidden that it had been built specifically to hide something. Inside that tiny pocket was a tightly rolled up piece of paper. When they unrolled it, there were two words printed on it in elegant little type: Tamam Shud. A police reporter named Frank Kennedy recognized the words immediately. They were Persian. They translated to "it is ended," or "the end," or "finished." These were the final words of a famous old poem called the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam, a 12th century Persian poetry collection that had become really popular in Australia during the war years. It's a book about living life fully, accepting death, having no regrets when the end comes. So now police had a direction. If this scrap of paper came from a real copy of that book, then somewhere out there was a book missing its last page. Find the book, maybe find some answers. They put out a public appeal. Has anyone found a copy of the Rubaiyat missing its final page? Months passed. Then in July 1949, a man came forward. He said he had found a copy of that exact book in the back seat of his unlocked car, parked near Somerton Beach. And he had found it on November 30th, the day before the body was discovered. He hadn't thought anything of it at the time, just tossed it in his car and didn't look at it twice. It sat there for months before he even remembered it. Police examined the book. The final page was torn out, and the missing piece matched perfectly with the scrap of paper in the dead man's pocket. But that wasn't the only thing in the book. On the inside of the back cover, faintly pressed into the paper, like someone had written hard on a page above it and the marks pressed through, were 5 lines of capital letters, no spaces, no punctuation, just random-looking letters, arranged like a code. Below that, in the same faint-pressed handwriting, was a phone number. This is where the case takes its strangest turn. Police traced the phone number. It led them to a young woman who lived in a suburb near Somerton Beach, just a short walk from where the body was found. Her name has gone by a few different versions over the years, because police protected her identity for decades. She was known publicly for a long time only by the pseudonym Justin. Her real name, revealed many years later, was Jessica Ellen Thompson. When detectives showed her a plaster cast that had been made of the dead man's face, police had preserved his face in plaster before burying him, just in case they ever needed to identify him later. Witnesses say she appeared visibly shaken, disturbed, like she recognized something. But she told police she didn't know him. She did admit something interesting, though. She said that during the war, she had given a copy of the Rubaiyat to a man she knew, a soldier named Alfred Boxall. For a moment, police thought they had solved it. If Boxall was missing, then maybe the body was Boxall, and the case was basically closed. They tracked Boxall down. He was alive, living completely normal, and he still had his copy of the Rubaiyat, fully intact, last page and all, so that lead went nowhere. But it left behind a strange, lingering question. Why did this woman react so strongly to the dead man's face if she truly had no connection to him? Over the decades, people have speculated endlessly about her. Some believe she was hiding a relationship with the dead man. Some believe he may have come to Adelaide specifically looking for her. There were even theories, based on shared rare physical traits between her son and the dead man, things like unusual ear shape and a rare dental condition that only a tiny percentage of people have, that the Somerton Man might have been the boy's biological father. DNA testing decades later ruled that connection out completely. They were not related. Jessica Thompson passed away in 2007. She took whatever she actually knew to her grave. She never gave a full explanation. And honestly, that silence has fueled just as much speculation as anything else in this case. Let's go back to those 5 lines of capital letters in the back of the book, because to this day, in 2026, nobody has officially broken that code. It looked, at first glance, like total nonsense. Random letters with no obvious pattern. But that's exactly what a real code is supposed to look like. Over the decades, professional code breakers, university researchers, military cryptographers, and thousands of amateur internet sleuths have tried to crack it. Some have proposed it might be the first letters of words from a poem or a passage, a common trick from that era for creating an easy-to-remember code. Others believe it might just be random scribbles, maybe written by someone who was drunk, or in a hurry, or not even trying to make sense. The fact that the marks were only visible as indentations, pressed through from writing on a page that was on top of it, adds another wrinkle. We don't even have the original page these letters were copied from. We only have what pressed through onto the page underneath. In 2014, computational linguists actually ran statistical analysis on the letter patterns, trying to determine if it resembled a real language or cipher structure. The results were inconclusive. It might be code, it might be nothing. This is the detail that turned the Tamam Shud case into something bigger than a simple unsolved death. A hidden pocket, a torn page from a poem about death and endings, a phone number to a woman who reacted strangely but said nothing, and an uncracked code sitting quietly in the back of a book for over 70 years. It's the kind of detail that makes people start whispering words like spy. You have to remember the time period here. 1948. The world had just come out of World War II. The Cold War was beginning. Adelaide, where this happened, was actually close to a sensitive area, not far from where Australia would later conduct rocket and weapons testing with the British government. A well-dressed man with no identification, labels cut out of his clothes, an undetectable cause of death, and a coded message hidden in a book. It reads like something out of a spy novel. For decades, this theory had real traction. Some researchers pointed to the timing and location as suspicious. Others noted that whatever killed him left no detectable trace in 1948. And pointed out that intelligence agencies of that era were known to be developing methods of poisoning that were difficult to trace. But here's the problem with the spy theory. No government has ever come forward, even decades later, when Cold War secrets started getting declassified, acknowledging any connection to this man. No country has ever claimed him as one of their own, lost in the field. No espionage agency files, declassified over the following decades, have ever direct referenced him. That doesn't rule it out completely. But after over 70 years, you'd expect at least a hint, somewhere, if this had truly been an intelligence operation. Still, nobody has ever been able to fully kill the spy theory either, because nobody has ever explained, with real evidence, what else would account for all these strange details lining up the way they did. For over 7 decades, the Somerton Man, as people had started calling him, remained completely unidentified. A professor at the University of Adelaide named Derek Abbott became obsessed with the case starting in 2009. He spent years working on it, eventually partnering with an American genealogist named T. Colleen Fitzpatrick. Here's the lucky break that made everything possible. Back in 1949, when police first buried the body, they had the foresight to embalm him and make a plaster cast of his head and upper body, specifically so the body could be identified later if needed. During that process, some of his hair accidentally got trapped in the plaster. That hair sat there, preserved for decades. In 2011, police gave Abbott access to those hair strands. Scientists at the University of Adelaide spent years, with roughly 20 different people working on it over time, trying to extract usable DNA from such old, degraded hair samples. Eventually, they succeeded, and Abbott and Fitzpatrick used that DNA to build out a massive family tree, eventually connecting around 4,000 names, slowly narrowing down the search. On July 26, 2022, Abbott announced what he believed was the answer. The Somerton Man was Carl Charles Webb, an electrical engineer and instrument maker born in Melbourne in 1905. After more than 73 years, the man finally had a name. So who was this man once you actually have a name to work with? Carl Webb was, by most accounts, a fairly ordinary person. He worked as an electrical engineer. There's nothing in his background suggesting espionage, military intelligence work, or anything dramatic. According to Abbott's research, Webb apparently liked poetry. He reportedly even wrote some himself, which would help explain the connection to the Rubaiyat, separate from any coded spy message theory. But here's the thing. Identifying his name didn't actually solve the case. It just gave the mystery a face and a name to attach to all the unanswered questions. We still don't know why his clothing labels were removed. We still don't know what killed him, or whether it was suicide, murder, or something else entirely. We still don't know what those 5 lines of letters mean. We still don't know his actual connection, if there was one, to Jessica Thompson, the woman whose phone number was hidden in that book. South Australia police, as of the most recent statements, have not officially confirmed Abbott's identification. They've said they're waiting on their own testing results. As of now, in 2026, no official government confirmation has closed this case. Even with a name, the Tamam Shud case remains technically open. I think what makes this case stick with people decade after decade isn't really about who he was. It's about how many small, specific details line up into something that still doesn't make complete sense. A man dies with no visible cause. No poison detected, despite a doctor insisting it was poisoning. His clothing labels are deliberately removed. A hidden pocket, sewn specifically to conceal something, contains 2 words torn from a poem about endings. The book those words came from has an uncracked code in the back, alongside a phone number belonging to a woman who reacts strangely but denies everything. Any one of these details on its own would just be odd. All of them together in the same case is what made this story last over 70 years. For decades, people would leave flowers at his grave. Nobody ever found out who. The flowers just kept appearing at strange and unpredictable intervals on a grave belonging to a man nobody could identify. Who was leaving them? Was it someone who actually knew him? Was it just strangers who'd become fascinated by the mystery? The same way I am right now, the same way you probably are if you're still watching this? We don't know that either. So where does that leave us, all these years later? We have a name now, Carl Webb, even if it's not yet officially confirmed by police. We have a rough idea of his background. We have decades of theories, ranging from heartbreak to espionage to simple bad luck. But we still don't have an actual explanation. We don't know how he died. We don't know why someone would go to such lengths to make sure nobody could identify him. We don't know what that code means, sitting quietly in the back of a poetry book for over 70 years. Tamam Shud, it is ended. The final words of a poem about accepting life and death without regret. Maybe that's exactly what this man wanted people to think. Or maybe it was just the only book he happened to have in his pocket that day. And we've all spent 70 years reading meaning into something that was never really there. I genuinely don't know which one it is, and honestly I don't think anyone does. The grave is still there, in Adelaide. People still visit it sometimes. The mystery is still, in its own strange way, unfinished. Thank you for watching. This is one of those cases where the more you learn, the less certain everything feels. If you have any theories about that code, I'd genuinely like to know what you think. See you in the next one.